much of the film was previs? Was it just the action sequences, or did you take it a little bit broader into some of the non-action sequences?
I feel like it was mostly the visual effects.
Mostly action, yeah. Mostly action.
And as you were working on that, did the story change, or did the previs sort of affect the story?
I would say, Steph, you can correct me. The story is kind of, I mean, the basic beats of the story were always there. We always knew that it was going to be this search, you know, is Janet still alive, possibly in the quantum realm, and if so, can we find her? And, you know, it's a constantly evolving thing, which is one of the interesting things about Marvel, and particularly doing a movie this big and this visually dense, is that you can really affect change in a really fluid way. It was something I discovered on the first Ant-Man, but and it's kind of counterintuitive. It was a big thing that I learned as a director on these movies, is that I just assumed once you sort of chose this lane, the machinery's so big you'd never be able to change, but you actually can, and it kind of becomes a part of the writing in a weird way.
Yeah, and I would say, you know, in terms of specifics, when you go into the car chase, for example, we had like beats that we wanted to go through, but we also did a lot of work in previs with Peyton and the guys from Third Floor to kind of find the gags. You know, we knew we wanted to play with the size of the cars and, you know, all that stuff going through San Francisco. And a big thing that Peyton told me at the beginning, you know, was that he wanted to be more in San Francisco and feature San Francisco much more. So we really played with the landmark location in San Francisco, and then you know, the script got rewritten based on the beats that we found, and it's that feedback loop that happens all the time on all Marvel films, to be honest, where you have an idea on the page, and then we start prevising, and then the previs feeds the writers again, and then it kind of, you know, works organically like that. And that's actually a very interesting process for, you know, us in visual effects and previs, because that's where we get to really work with Peyton and you know, prepare the film.
Previs is like its own version for me of writing, because you know, once we had the basic story beats, the character beats, and the story we wanted to tell, and we started talking about these sequences, we would sit around and sort of talk about what we wanted to see in Ant-Man and Wasp, just visual gags. We knew we were going to have Ant-Man and Giant Man, and with this malfunctioning suit can seat a lot of sizes in between. And we really decided to sort of build these sequences, so it really would be us listing gags. And when we decided on, for example, the restaurant fight with the Wasp, you know, and going into the kitchen, just making a list. Okay, what's in the kitchen? What could be funny? And it reminds me in a weird way of how you'd always read about the silent movie era, and they had gag writers. And that was how those things were written.
And some of the early Disney cartoons as well.
Walt, absolutely.
There's stories of Walt would go around, and if someone had a good gag, he would give them $20 or $50, you know, and they would put it in it.
Yeah, we weren't handing out 20s on this one. But no, it was really, it's refreshing to me, because it is, I've always loved visual comedy, and this is a chance to, you come up with a crazy idea, and we talk about it, and then work with Third Floor to previs something, and in a matter of like a day or two, you've got a really beautifully rendered 3D thing that can be a proof of concept as to whether this thing could work, and is it visually exhilarating, and maybe is it funny as well.
It sounds like you use that sort of as a bridge, you know, because you're primarily known for comedic stuff and visual, you know, all of a sudden you're on a 1,700 shot show. Was that sort of a comfortable way of working for you, getting introduced to visual effects?
I wouldn't even say it's a bridge. I'd say it is the process. It's the part of the process that, again, talking about kind of the fluidity of the system that you guys have set up, I found it incredible. I mean, that you can just come up with these things. You know, occasionally there are a couple of days where I'd have an idea on the way to work. Sometimes they were terrible, by the way. But you could go in and pitch the idea and kind of like, yeah, let's get Third Floor to do a version of that. And, you know, sometimes those things end up in the movie.
Yeah. And now, at what point did you start divvying up the work between